Hello everyone, this is Hedgie. This is an unscheduled stream, sort of. I was hoping I could stream sometime this week, but we've had a lot going on here. I want to thank anybody who has come and anybody who will view my mod or VOD at a later time. I need to turn on my screen closed captioning, which I believe I just did. And because Andrew is making noodles for me to go with what I'm making tonight. So I will introduce myself to anyone who has just happening across me and doesn't know who I am. My name is Hedgepig, and yeah, it really is. It is my nickname and has been so for about 15 years now. And I am a home cook who was taught to cook by my grandmother and my paternal grandmother, and I have spent the last 44 years of my life building on her cooking lessons and my own love of cooking for my friends and family and loved ones. And I have spent way too much money amassing cookbooks and watching, first starting out with the PBS chefs on Saturday, and then as Food Network came online, watching their cooking shows and basically learning everything I could about cooking. And now I'm here to share that with you all. So I tonight was going to cook two things, but that's just a bit much with everything that's been going on this week. Including I've actually got an entirely new cooking setup here. But you really can't see that except for the fact that my tablecloth is no longer sparkly and pink, but it's now this beautiful turquoise color. Anyway, so welcome into my stream. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody who's here. And I am going to be making sour cream dill chicken tonight, which is chicken thighs and mushrooms and sweet onions cooked together in a sour cream dill sauce based in a white sauce. And that's going to be served over noodles. And I will make, and here comes our friend from the West. This is the pink pig who comes in to say, hello, hello. And she's going to come and watch from the wings. And the next time she comes out is either when my husband can't stand it anymore and pays for her reappearance, or one of you does. In any case, we are going to get started now. I have been a little behind in my Discord in getting the recipes up, and I am in the middle of getting those up and editing the pictures from our stream food for the last couple times I've done this. And eventually you will have the recipes for everything I've ever cooked on stream, including tonight's recipe, in my Discord under stream recipes. And pictures will be under stream food pictures. And you can see everything there. It was my fault. I got behind. And it just got harder and harder to dig myself out. So I am going to start out with a sweet onion here. And this is not a Walla Walla sweet. It has a rather typical onion shape, and that's not typical for sweet onions. So Walla Walla sweets have more of a, instead of being more round like this and more long from one side to the other here, they tend to be very narrow this way and very long this way. So they're big around when you're looking at the onion rings, but they're a very shallow onion. And that is the Walla Walla onion, which I believe is one of the best onions in the world for anything, really. just amazing onions. They're very mild. They have a natural sweetness to them that has a tendency to make them taste when they're cooked as if they have been caramelized when they have not, in fact, been caramelized. So that's definitely a benefit if you're looking for the caramelized onion taste, or you just want to have a milder flavored onion. So I choose those because I come from Washington State, and this is where I'm streaming from. I'm streaming from outside of Seattle, and that makes it so that I have access to beautiful sweet onions most of the year, and only at times like right now when they've pretty much cleared out all of the regular sweet onions, do I have to rely on the sweet onions that are from far different areas. I believe this is a Mayan sweet, and they're a decent sweet onion, but they're not shaped the same way that I'm looking for. Anyway, so as usual, I have cut off the growth end where the onion sprouts come up, and left on the root end because it holds the onion together, and it makes it very easy to dice the onion without the onion falling all apart everywhere. So I cut off that end to give me a flat surface, and then being very careful of where my fingers are, I set the blade of my knife into the back of the root ball and slice down, making sure my fingers are out of the way, flat on top of the flat of the blade, so that when it suddenly goes through, it doesn't ever cut my fingers. Yes, Seattle is known for being very wet, especially where we are, which is, we are, I think, about 15 miles outside of Seattle, and we are kind of up against the Cascade Mountains, which makes it so that we have all of the weather coming into the mountains to drop off the rain and extra wetness and storms and winds, and it's a nice place to live, but it can be very tumultuous and sudden in power cutoffs and such. So I am just going to put a rather large dice on this sweet onion, and it's because I don't want the sweet onion to disappear. I want it to be nice and chunky in the sauce that we are making for this, which is based upon the what they call a bechamel, or a cream sauce, which is one of the 7 mother sauces. Though once I put the sour cream into it and the dill, that makes it a daughter sauce. So once you take that mother sauce and you do anything to it, it becomes a daughter sauce. And that's just sort of how it works. So I am going to turn my temperature here up to, and I can't see it if I put my other hand in the way, I'm going to turn it up to about 250 degrees, maybe up to 275, somewhere in there. It's kind of there's a spot for 250 and then there's a 300, and I'm kind of placing it in between the two there. And I am going to start off by sauteing the onions in that and softening them. I forgot to ask for my board scraper, but that's okay. I have gone, 44 years of cooking without having a board scraper, so I'm guessing I'm going to go longer without it. It'll be just fine. Now, I did already pre-spray this with some oil, but it doesn't look like I've got enough in here, so I'm going to add a little bit more so nothing burns. And please excuse my festive t-shirt I'm wearing. It's a pretty color, so I didn't pay attention to the fact it's got snowmen on it. Okay, so I've got half the onion in there, and I am going to add the other half of an onion in a quick dice. If you have any questions, please feel free to Ask the question at any time. Andrew, if I don't notice it right away, will call my attention to it. And I want to thank Curiosity for having subscribed for another month at the very end of my last stream, just as we went into a raid, so she never got displayed, and I don't think she followed the raid, so she didn't go along with it, but I do thank her. She is a wonderful supporter. She's a wonderful variety game streamer who I met through the Long Dark community here on Twitch, and she's just an amazing woman. Beyond having a wonderful voice for doing streaming, she's got an endlessly sunny disposition, and she does good work as a scientist. And I am now testing a noodle. And it's good. So the noodles that this will be put on are now finished. Thank you, honey. Yep, another person joining the Pigloo for a month. So I'm going to get these started, and I'm going to add in 8 ounces of mushrooms, which is rather restrained for me. I originally called for 8 ounces in this, and I never have bumped it up. And I considered it because I love mushrooms so much, but I thought I would add a little more space in the dish for other ingredients to come to the fore instead of always just being mushrooms. So I've got 8 ounces of mushrooms and a diced sweet onion here, added to some canola cooking spray in my electric skillet here, and I am going to want to cook this for about 10 minutes, which is long enough for the mushrooms to release their mushroomy goodness, all that lovely juice that they contain inside of them. And mushrooms are mostly water, so that is something that needs to be cooked down.
So it's Worcestershire sauce.
That's Worcestershire sauce. And no, that isn't going to be added to this. I do need to get some of that, so if you could write that down to remind me, honey, I do have some recipes coming up that call for that. So I need to remember to get it. I might not. Anyway, the smell of cooking onions is always a lovely one to me. It's a lovely smell. You add this, and you add you add some cooking, you add the mushrooms, and you add the onions and saute them together, and then you add in something like cabbage, and I swear that is good enough to eat just by itself. And it adds so much to anything else that you would be cooking with this. Just starting this way, if I started adding cabbage in at this point, I'd be making my filling for my chicken egg rolls with onions and mushrooms, although I generally use not white mushrooms, which these are, which are button mushrooms. I usually use cremini because it adds more of a flavor to it. Too much noise? Okay. Alright. Now is my husband coming in and adjusting the microphone screen, because apparently the sizzling was a little too much in his readout. So I am going to add a little bit of butter into this because it kind of needs it. It's going dry awfully fast, so I'm going to make sure I've got some butter in here too, with the onions and mushrooms. And I'm turned the heat down a little bit because I'm getting brown spots on the bottom of my pan, which isn't bad because all that is, if you let them stay brown but don't go to burnt spots, what you've got there is a concentration of flavor when you make a pan sauce later. But if you let it go too long and it actually burns and you don't scrape it up, then you've got burnt flavor. We don't want that. So, let's check. Yep, I've got the temperature turned down now past under 250 because this is a fairly hot pan. And the onions are done. The mushrooms are releasing their liquids now, but they are not to where they need to be. And while I am doing this, the recipe calls for 6 to 8 chicken thighs, boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And I portioned that for rather large chicken thighs. And the chicken thighs I have right now are not exactly large. So I am going to start portioning these up for the dish that I'm making. But I have got more than 6 to 8 here. And that is because they're small. These are far smaller than most of the chicken thighs that I use. And yes, these are partially frozen. I can cut through them quite easily. And I like to actually cut the meat at that stage where what we've got is a partially frozen meat because it cuts so easily and it doesn't, I can make very sharp, easy cuts into it and can get it portioned correctly. So I am just cutting these into larger pieces because this is going to be served in a sauce with the mushrooms and onions and then over the top of noodles, but it's not going to be incorporated like casserole. So we don't actually want it to be tiny little pieces of chicken. We want it to be big chunks. And it will take a little bit longer to cook, but that doesn't really matter. The main thing you want to make sure is that you have the right balance of proteins in this to your noodles. You don't want this to be a really light protein base on this, where you've got, maybe 1 chicken thigh per person. That's a bit low in this. You want to have at least 2 based on the size of these chicken thighs. Now, the pasta dish, we would still serve a nice vegetable beside this, but you do need to make sure that you have the protein represented and that it's not just the flavoring, it is the larger portion of what the meal is. It's a chicken dish. So, okay, so I've got that here now, and this can get out of the way because it has been used on chicken. So I'm going to get this out of the way, and then I am going to wash my hands. And then I will start adding the seasoning to this. Okay, hydrate, eh? Okay, I will drink something. I'm going to hydrate with coffee, which everybody knows isn't really something you hydrate yourself with, but good enough. dehydrate honey. And I am just going to move this chicken around until I know it's all on the bottom and that nothing is going to burn while it's cooking. Okay. And I will leave that there on top while I check the recipe. Alright, I need 1 tablespoon of parsley. I'm going to add that parsley over all of the chicken. If you want to switch that to the other music, to the chill fix, go ahead. I'm finding this a little irritating tonight. There we go. Okay, so I am going to stir that parsley in here. Hey kitten, how you doing? Welcome in. This is Glittered Kitten, everyone, and she is the person who is responsible for my emotes and my redeem figure there. And oh, he's been just waiting to show that to someone. Glittered Kitten is also a variety streamer, and she's an artist. She works for a lot of people, making their emotes and art, and she's just wonderful at it. And Andrew has been just waiting to unleash that wiggling corgi butt at people. He's just been waiting for it. And I need a teaspoon of dill. So, all right, I have got my measuring spoons here. And here is a teaspoon, and this is dried dill. So far what you've got is 1 sweet onion in here and 1 8-ounce container of white mushrooms, and then we have roughly what would be 8 large
woot woot woot.
Oh, thank you very much for the subscription, Kitten. I appreciate that. We have not put any salt in here yet. It needs about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to add that. And kind of in general, this is not something my mother's going to be able to eat because it has sour cream and milk in it. Or it will. And I'm going to add just the least little bit of pepper. I was originally going to make a seafood shepherd's pie today as well, but there's just too much going on at our house, so it's really better if I wait on that and do that next stream. And then I need about 1/2 teaspoon of sage. And this is sage. Brand new, just opening. I really like this Simple Truth Organic spices that I've been getting recently, because not only are they inexpensive, but they come in a larger container and they're glass. And I like that over the little plastic ones you really can't see through. So, quarter, here's a half teaspoon. And I will get the half teaspoon of sage. And I will put that over the top of the chicken, mushrooms, and onions. And there is mostly, it has just been spray oil in there, but I did add about 2 tablespoons of butter because it wasn't quite enough. And I'm going to turn these over so that the sides that it has been cooking on are now going to be to the ceiling. And the as yet raw sides will be on top. This recipe came about basically, I created it, and I'm sure there's nothing new under the sun, and someone else has some version similar to this, but this came when I started, I lost the ability to eat beef, and I was still able to eat chicken, and I really liked the idea of making beef stroganoff, but I thought I would try it with chicken instead. So I used the onions and mushrooms, and then I put chicken in there, and then I started playing with the seasonings until I liked the seasonings. And that included some dill, which goes surprisingly well with chicken, I think. And parsley goes good with everything. And I use sage an awful lot with meat whenever I'm doing meat. So I am going to keep this cooking here. And it's just on a fairly low heat. It's maybe a medium heat, because this will be cooking with a sour cream and milk sauce. Oh dear. Oh wow. That's just awful, kitten. So is your drive is actually failing. That doesn't sound good. I don't know much about how to fix it. But this is usually where I turn to my husband and look helpless, because I'm helpless. So I hope you have somebody, or like the Geek Squad or something, that can come out to take a look at what it is that's going on with your computer. I am now going to take this off to the side. And this is probably not 100% the best way to do this, but this is how I'm going to. I'm going to move this off. This is a very large pan here. I am going to take and cut up the rest of the butter and put it in there to melt. And I'm going to make the sauce in half of this while I am still cooking the chicken in the other half. There we go. And I have got my flour container here. And that was basically half a cup of butter. And I'm now going to add just short of half a cup of flour once the butter finishes melting. And cooking it in the pan like this, it's actually going to pick up all the cooking flavors of the onions and the mushrooms and the chicken, and it's going to make a really lovely flavored sauce. I'm now going to add the flour in here on top of it. And let it cook for a little bit. You could go ahead and make this in a completely different pan, but I'm trying to be nice to my husband and make it so his cleanup is a little easier. So I am going to whisk the flour up here in with the oil. And try to keep my arm off of the edge of the pan so I don't burn myself. And there we go. I've got a little bit of onion and mushroom mixed in with this, but that really doesn't matter. Cooking's a pretty fluid science. It's more of a craft, really, unless you're talking baking, and then it's got to be really precise. Doesn't think that you would, I've never, really believed that that was true, but then I went a little fast and loose on some of the measurements and temperatures and directions when I was trying to make cakes, and they turned out absolutely hideously. So what you want here is for the butter to have absorbed all of the flour and have the flour still be wet looking, have it be like wet sand. And yeah, you gotta love marrying a computer guy, don't you? I mean, it's the best. Really is the best. This is cooking pretty rapidly and heat here, so I am going to add my milk to it, and I'm adding in 3 cups of milk to that flour. And yeah, it's going to get in there with the chicken and everything else, but I'm not worried about that. I am more worried about things burning, so I'm going to continue to work this in. And I've got all 3 cups of milk there, and it's not going to make lumps because the milk was already at a more room-like temperature, so when it got in with the hot roux, it didn't seize up. So we're doing okay on that, and now I need to check this area over here to make sure that it's doing okay. And it is. Nothing's burning on that side. And since this is basically going to cook in the white sauce, it's going to cook in this sauce, we're okay with that. And now I need to add sour cream. And yeah, I like to make sure that the ingredients that I use are the best I can possibly get my hands on, so I'm using a fairly good quality sour cream. This is from Darigold. And I am going to put in a cup of sour cream. And that will melt into the sauce. So I'm going to get that off of my knife. And then just sort of carefully mix that in with the white sauce that is forming. And this will eventually thicken up. I need to talk a little louder. Okay, sorry about that. I'm feeling a little mellow at the moment. So the sauce has everything it needs to thicken here, and it will eventually thicken up. The sour cream is going to help that, and the flour that's in it's going to help that. But this is going to add all of this flavor to the chicken as the chicken cooks. And we could have actually mixed this up, all of the sauce into putting the raw chicken and mushrooms and onion into a baking pan and then poured it over and just stuck it in the oven. But I prefer it this way, actually. So I am going to use that there and mix my mushrooms and onions and chicken through. chicken simmer in the sauce, which we will then be taking all of this loveliness and serving it over noodles. And I found out I did not have enough egg noodles. So instead we're using rotini. That's fine. You may find when you're doing a sauce that you're thickening that has sour cream in it, if you use full fat sour cream, that you get little, like, well, it almost looks like it's broken, but it's not a broken sauce. It's just the fat is not melted in there completely, and it's pretty much only during the first iteration of your sauce. I am going to turn the heat down a little bit further. And then get rid of the rest of the sour cream here. Because I don't need any of that anymore. And all of the spices are out of the way. I am going to pull this further towards me so that I can reach it all easier. And the one thing you'll want to do with this, since it's actually on a, in this case, if you're making it in a skillet, is continue to stir this while it cooks so that you don't have it burning anywhere. Because anytime you have a white sauce or a gravy that's thickened, you can very easily burn it to the bottom, and we don't want to do that. And I don't really want this to boil as much as I want it to cook. I just want it to be a simmer. So that way then we don't actually split the sauce. Because this is chicken that isn't completely cooked, I'm not able to taste this before the chicken is cooked for the seasoning. So this is something that I will check the seasoning for salt and pepper right before I serve it, because you don't want to run into chicken that is not fully cooked. I know there's people that say, well, all those old rules about chicken don't really apply anymore. You know, our industry has changed since then, and you can eat chicken medium rare, and you can eat pork medium rare, and my generation says, no, sir, I would rather have my chicken cooked all the way through. I would rather have my pork cooked all the way through. No pink juices, no pink flesh. And it's better to be safe than sorry. And because being sorry, getting the kind of food poisonings you get off of pork and off of chicken, you just don't want to mess with that. You know, salmonella is nothing to be light with. It is nasty. And trichinosis off of pork is nothing to mess around with. Yeah, they can fix you from both of those, but it does require hospitals and nastiness, and you really don't want to be sick like that. It doesn't add much fun. So this smells absolutely amazing. I can smell the chicken, of course, and the onion. I can smell the dill in here, and I can smell the sour cream. Believe it or not, the sour cream is something that is possible to smell. That's called fishing for hedge pig with Swedish fish. It is a favorite naughty treat of Hedgepigs, taken carefully and in moderation. My sauce has gotten nicely thick. And I am going to have to check the chicken shortly. And I've got the temperature now on the burner of this. The temperature gauge is down to about 200. So it is a slow oven. This had raw chicken in it. You'll want to take that away. And the thing down here.
Well, I've checked, and that's definitely chicken.
It is definitely chicken. Yeah, not even slightly pink chicken or pork is how I do it. I ended up once upon a time getting E. coli from hamburger, and it was a very rushed lunch that had to be taken in my car as I was going between one office and the next for a meeting, and I wasn't very... Oh dear. This is a stuffed turtle that says, "Turtly yours." Turtly. Turtly. My husband likes to get me toys when I'm feeling sick or he's in the mood and he finds something that's cute. And, yeah. And here's a little raccoon friend that he is showing now. I need to have a small knife and a fork, honey, if you would. That was used to cook raw chicken, or cut raw chicken. Oops. And get them off the side before it burns. Getting burned cream sauce off the side of things is not pleasant later on. Thank you. And that looks like a good chunk of chicken. I'm going to take that out and put it here on my cutting board. That looks cooked through, but I'm going to give it another couple minutes just to be sure. So again, this recipe will be up shortly. It is a white sauce made with half a cup of butter and half a cup of flour, 3 cups of milk, and then you stir in 1 cup of sour cream to it. It is 6 to 8 large boneless, skinless chicken thighs that you are sauteing with 1 sweet onion, 8 ounces of white button mushrooms, and then seasoned with salt and pepper. And then it has got a teaspoon of dill and a tablespoon of parsley and a half teaspoon of sage in it. And I am going to look and see if there's any particularly thick looking chunk of chicken, and that looks like it's one of them. I am going to cut it, see, carefully so I'm not grating on the bottom. And we have got chicken that is cooked all the way through. So at this point, I can taste the sauce to see if it tastes like it is needing salt or pepper. So I'm going to take a spoon since I don't have any tasting spoons out here. That is actually very nice. I am going to add a little bit more salt over it. Probably 1/8 of a teaspoon, if that much. And I'm going to add a little pinch more dill to it, which is probably going to add another 1/4 teaspoon because I want the dill flavor a little stronger than that. I think my dill's getting old, which is why you need to make sure that you don't keep your spices forever. They do get bad, and when they get old, they kind of lose their flavoring, and they can actually pick up, you know, either bad flavors, they turn dusty flavored, or they just get really, really weak. So I think my dill is not something I've used a lot in the past year since I bought that. So I think I need to make some more. Okay, so now that I've got this here, I am going to put this to the side, and I am going to start with a lovely seasonal pasta bowl, which also has snowflakes on it and different critters, snowmen in it. And I am using rotini pasta for this. Go ahead and scoop that up. It seems to have stuck together a bit since it was drained. Okay, and then why don't you scoop up some more of that into the next one. Okay. I am going to take the sauce and chicken and mushrooms, and I am going to ladle this over the top. No, this really isn't a single portion here. Okay. There you go. You can go take a picture of that. Thank you. Oh, camera. And I've got a second one. A lot less in it. run away and taken pictures of one of the bowls. I've got another one here. And I am going to take and get some other rotini pasta here. And some of the onion and mushroom and a little bit of the chicken that I flaked off. And I'm going to raise this up here so you can see it. And blow on this so I don't burn my face off. It really is delicious. The sauce is creamy and thick. You can taste the chicken all through it. You can taste the mushroom, the sweet onions influence, and the dill added in with chicken and the sour cream in the sauce just elevate it to a whole different taste than what you're expecting. It's just wonderful, and it's so easy to make. You could just take your chicken, put it into a 13 by 9 baking pan, put the diced onion over it, put the mushrooms in it, mix the sauce together with all the seasonings, pour it over and cook it in an hour for 350. But I think the sauteing it gives the browned chicken a little extra flavor. It is absolutely spectacular. I do want to thank you, Kitten, for showing up. I want to thank you for doing my artwork and working on that. And we are going to raid somebody, which I hope you will stick around for. I think we're going to raid Queen Shark, who is a lovely variety streamer. She is also a sex educator, and she's very funny. She likes to play scary games and let people scare the living snot out of her, and she's just a lot of fun. I suggest very much going and seeing her and saying hi and giving her a follow if you like what you see. So we're going to go over to there, and I want to thank you again so much for coming, and I hope you try this recipe and enjoy it.